Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. This is the time and place for a City Council meeting. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2019. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Modrick. Nordstrom. Drew. Scott. Drury. Laurenti. Roberts. Armstrong. Lewis. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Tonight's invocation brought to us by Bishop Troy Carr, and following the invocation we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So.
Let us pray. Dear God of the Bible, who lives in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our life, our health, and our strength. And God, tonight I pray for the council meeting, and I pray that you would give them wisdom to tackle the difficult decisions in our society and in our city, and will help them make decisions that are according to your will. God, I ask that you would bless our mayor, bless our city council, bless our governor, bless our president, and God bless the United States of America. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now it's time for the council to adopt the agenda. They can make some adjustments to the agenda if they choose at this point, or they can adopt it as written. Would there be a motion? Motion to adopt by Laurenti and a second by Armstrong. All in favor of adopting the agenda say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Now we have a couple of employee awards. I'll call first on the police chief to come up and introduce the one and only Pam Cowling.
There she is.
Thank you, Mayor. We are here to recognize Pam Cowling for her recent retirement after 30 years of service. A couple weeks ago, she had her last day. We had a retirement celebration for her involving many members of the department. We shared some stories and had some laughs and sent her off in a very good way. So when she came in the door this morning, I told her she looks really de-stressed, and I confirmed that she enjoys her retirement thus far. So once again, we just want to wish you the best of luck. Pam was our accounting clerk, so primarily responsible to ensure payroll for our staff, which is in the tune of over $10 million a year with near zero errors for a 30-year period. And so we just want to thank you very much for your service. And I'll pass it over to Mayor Allender.
It's a real treat to have city employees meeting these benchmarks, and in Pam's case, the retirement benchmark. And it's important to note that 3 decades of service is a lot. It's more than some of the folks in the audience have been living, and it certainly seems to go fast. But Pam's been a strong and steady positive force for the city, and sorry to see her go, but we're glad to see her moving on to the next chapter. So let's have a hand for Pam Cowling. Pam would not like to say anything now, so I'll just say she thanks you all for recognizing her. And now I'd like to welcome Rod Seals from the Rapid City Fire Department to introduce our next 4 Rapid City employees.
Well, it's an honor tonight to represent some of our firefighters that are hitting some pretty phenomenal benchmarks, 20 years of service. And so if you'd come up as I call your name, and I'll say a little bit about you. So the first one is Seth Purcell. Seth currently serves at Fire Station 8, which is at the airport, and he's been a vital force out there for many years at the airport, and I hear he's got an awesome brother-in-law. Next, Tim Weaver. Tim's a lieutenant in our Fire and Life Safety Division, and he's the one that single-handedly heads up all of our wildland-urban interface, all of the stuff, the junk the junipers and everything he's come up with. So he does some amazing things on the prepare part of our mission. So Tim. Next, Kel Gunderson. Kel currently serves as the captain out at Fire Station 7, which is also our heavy rescue station. Heavy rescue is where they're responsible for not only the typical structure fires and medical calls that we go on day in and day out, but also with heavy rescue, which is building collapses, trench rescue, that type of thing. He's been a vital force in many years in developing both our light and heavy rescue stations. So, Kel. And last but not least, Paul Johnson. Lieutenant Johnson has been serving in the emergency services in the Rapid City area for over 30-plus years. How many total, Paul? 36, but who's counting? He's currently serves as a lieutenant out at Fire Station 8 out at the airport. And I'd also like to say that Paul's last day with us is at the end of this week. And so happy retirement to him. So thanks, Paul. With that, there was one more gentleman that wasn't able to make it tonight. He's also retiring here pretty quick with over 30 years of service in the fire service in South Dakota, Dean Belisle. So I was going to say this is what 100 years of commitment to the fire service looks like, but I guess we'll settle with 80. So good with that.
Let's give these men a round of applause. If you just glance up here for a second, look at these 5 men, you'll see that one of these things doesn't belong up here. There's one of you that are different than all the rest. It's the mustache, okay? Well, it is a real treat to have this many years of experience here, and you can hear from the description of what they do how many different components are in the fire service and how important all of them are to work toward accomplishing their mission. So it's very much an inspiration to congratulate all you men on your benchmark and on your retirement. And here's to many more for the rest of you. Okay, everyone, now's the time for general public comment. This is a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by a unanimous vote of the council members present. And first, I'm going to call Chuck Henry on the issue of ADA voting.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of you know I'm really big on ADA rules on that. And the other day I went to vote early at the county auditor's office and saw they didn't have the ADA booth up, voting booth for early voting for people with disabilities that need to use that booth. And I got told, I inquired about it, and they told that you need that city to pay for the programming for that, and that they only use it for federal elections, which is not right. That means people with disabilities that need that booth can't vote on city elections, county elections, or referendums that need it, that affect them in there. And on electors, I had them pass out the ADA protection for the right to work voters with disabilities, and there's several things in there that talks about doing it. So that means this election, people that have disabilities that need that booth, they can't elect people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now, next is Ted Wolk.
Thank you. I'm one of the individuals that got wiped out in the backup water from sewer systems. And the issue I want to talk about tonight is the Resolution 2011-017, sewage drainage compensation. It was passed in 2011. I believe this needs to be maybe updated. Recently, you had a water increase of about 30%, and you know, what's fair is fair. I think you need to look at providing an increase in this compensation. Right now, you're paying $3 a square foot. I had 1,100 square feet. You know, if I get $3, that's like $3,300. Just got the estimate from ServPro, $7,800. And that's just to clean up, and I already took the carpet out. This issue where I live at, which I recently moved, just put up the house for sale, just done remodeling on it. I was bringing somebody up to look at it at Tuesday, 12 o'clock. I went up there was no water. The sewer guys are out there in the manhole cover with their jet truck, and this happened about 4 years ago. Whatever they done, I got back there at 2 o'clock, there was 2 feet of water in my basement, and it kept going until it got up to about 3.5 feet. That jet truck, whatever it was, in my heart, it blew this, whatever safety situation I had that stopped the water from backing up into my house and my neighbors, some are here tonight, was created by that particular jet truck that came in and blew those water lines out. Because it's happened before, and as soon as I seen them there, I knew. I said, oh my God, we're going to have a problem. So, number one is, I guess, I'd like the city needs to take a look at maybe increasing this compensation from $3. You know, Big Mac was $3.27 in 2011. Today it's $4.75. So, I would hope the city would put this on their agenda, and I would hope that they would make it retroactive, and I would like to visit with somebody about my particular situation, you know, as a specific situation that I had here, so if somebody could call me on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Ramona Harrington.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I got several calls about, I live on East Ohio Street, and we have just, especially this year, but it started probably last year, we've had when it rains or the weather is wet, we get really a lot of water down on, it comes down East Ohio, it goes over into the ditch down there, run along East Mead, and it just overflows. And I've talked to several people, and they're talking about how the ground is so saturated, and that we have 4 sump pumps in the basement, and all of them working all the time, constantly. And all my neighbors are having the same issue. And I talked to he just retired, an engineer, and he said that they had the same issue where he lives, which he lives on Rena Place. And he said that when they put the drainage ditch along Hawthorne, that flooding seemed to stop, and they haven't had any problems. But he said just lately he has been getting a little bit of water. But the other thing was too, I talked to some community members that are in Ward 2, and they said that their sewer is backed up, and they've had severe damage to their basement. And he talked about that, and he said, I had 15 minutes to talk to him on my lunch, and he said, he goes, you would have to have more time than this, to discuss this issue. But he said it was an infiltration and an inflow problem. And he said that the sewer lines are old, and he said something about clay lines, or anyway, he said that even that ditch, that he could see where it settled, and the cement broke, and so the wet water is getting in there and really causing a problem with the overflow of water. But I don't know what the solution would be, and he told me all these people that I needed to talk to, but I'm not an engineer, but I do know that we need to have somebody do something and look at to see what is going on. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now James Bialotta.
How you doing, Council? My name is James Bialotta. I own several houses here in Rapid City. My primary residence is in Knollwood Heights, which is on Downing Street. Again, we have flooding issues, and it's no more of an insult than an injury than when you live high and dry on a hill and the city fled you out from your basement from the sewer backing up for 24 hours straight. Water flowed into my house from Tuesday straight into Wednesday and didn't stop until midday Wednesday. Now, to make matters worse, there's also a retention pond behind my house. The retention pond, when it gets full, seems to leak from the sides. It seems to be a no-brainer. However, that leak goes right through my yard, and now I have 6 to 8 inches of water in my backyard as well. My sump pump runs every 2 minutes, 3 at the most, and I'm being flooded from both sides from city water. And if I were to run my gutters onto my neighbor's property and they complained, the city would actually fine me. There's actually protection for them so I can't flood their property with my water. I'm asking where my protection is from the city flooding me with their water. The streets I live on, I've been told for 15 years, don't worry, those sewer lines are going to get replaced. They're under a term project coming up. I got a letter from Van Cleve that says just that. They're on a term project, but it's never been done. There's no storm drains on my street. There's no storm drains above me. So when all that water comes down, when it gets down to the end of the street, it's curb to curb with water 6 to 8 inches across. Well, guess what? If there's a manhole there, where do you think that water goes? You're wondering about why the sewer lines are all backed up and the water's going right down the manhole. So out of the last 7 days, water has flowed into my house, 3 of them that I know of. Because I ain't gonna lie, I didn't stay up at night. It started raining. I just called it quits and put the buckets and pumps up because it was just coming again. But I got almost all the water out Thursday into Friday, only to have it happen again on Friday again. Now, there's a problem with the city ordinance saying that they only reimburse $3 a foot. The first problem with that ordinance is there's nobody really in charge of it. This is the first I've ever heard of it, but it's the 5th time the city's flooded my basement. There wasn't anybody that rose their hand and said, wait a second, the city owes you $3 a foot these prior times. To make matters worse, I'm one of the lucky few that has water backup insurance. That's capped at $10,000. Between all my damage, the personal property, hauling and storing everything, we're going to be looking at 30 to 40. It's enough to make you cry. I have my oldest daughter here. She's supposed to be playing outside in the summer. All she's been doing is vacuuming up water and hauling our stuff out to a storage container. Now, to make matters worse, I'll be real fast. The insult to injury is first, I have to pay for a city permit to fix my house that the city ruined. The second thing, I had to pay for a permit to put a storage container to put my stuff on the street. And they're telling me, you better have it gone in 3 weeks. Well, that'd be great if the city would stop pumping water into my house for that long. And, you know, I would just beg that the city seriously look at these projects. It's enough to make a grown man cry, I can tell you that right now. And I would ask you to either refer this immediately to the Public Works Department, that project get replaced and fixed, and something in the interim for this neighborhood. The gentleman that was speaking just moments before me, he only was 2 streets away. That whole subdivision got flooded out from the utilities, not from the streets. Our utilities flooded us. We paid for a product that ruined our house. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Bill Evans.
Hello, I'm Bill Evans, concerned citizen and a candidate for Ward 2 Alderman. Few things have caused my phone to light up the last couple weeks, as much as this new policy that came out on the little card about garbage cans not being in the alleys anymore and being picked up on the street. Now, I decided to run for city council on a policy, on an agenda of asset management and liability assessment. And I complained a little bit in some of these forums about how Rapid City, over the last 40 years of my teaching career, seemed to miss the boat in so many opportunities. And when I saw the design for East Boulevard, I thought, you know what, maybe I could have some influence so we don't miss the boat on something like that again, because there was a chance to completely restore that beautiful boulevard back to what it used to be in the original city plan, and make it more like West Boulevard is, a great gateway to our city, so that when somebody drives in, they say, wow, this is a nice town. Well, the city council passed, or somebody in the last few months has evidently come up with a policy of moving garbage cans out of the alleyways into the streets in all instances. And to me, this maybe isn't the best way to show our city. Now, imagine you're a surgeon who's being driven from the downtown core area by the hospitality committee to the hospital. And that's the day that that entire 5th Street arterial is lined with garbage cans and the garbage trucks lined up to pick them up. Now, it may not seem like a big issue, but I'm telling you the garbage cans are going to be out all day long. That isn't the way I'd like to put the face on the city for somebody that's visiting, and we're promoting it. But I can also tell you that as driving to work for the last 27 years to Stevens, that same issue happened at the corner of Susan and West Main. And if you'd get backed up behind a car, behind a garbage truck, behind a car, we would back clear up to the corner at the Y that goes out Sturgis Road, because the garbage truck would be picking up in that lane. So it does cause a backlog on a major arterial. Many times kids were late for school because of that thing. Now, I don't know the process that the city went through to come up with this policy, but I do know probably some of the factors that should have weighed in were not assessed. And I understand safety, I understand damage to property, and I understand convenience for the workers, I understand all that, efficiency. But I also understand there's convenience for the citizens that are paying the taxes, and the fact that an alley is an asset in this case and should be utilized as such, since that's what they were built for, is for utility. And perhaps maybe we could come up with another solution that would take into consideration all of these factors, such as perhaps we could save the same amount of time by going down the alley in one direction, and the people who do have alley access and may not have access to the front of their house could all move their garbage containers to the same side. Causing one pass down every alley would save time for everybody, and then they wouldn't be unhappy that they have to wheel their garbage can around to the front of their house when it may not be possible. So I think we should revisit that policy right away. Thank you.
Thomas Helmer.
Thank you. My name is Tom Helmer. I live at 1505 West Boulevard with my wife, Diane Meisenholder. I'm here also to express some concerns about the proposed garbage having to be pushed on the street. And I realize that, as was shown today on the news, that cost and safety and getting out of the alleys because of the big trucks. But I think if you look at the original reason for the alleys and the trucks getting bigger, why don't we look at getting smaller trucks? But I think the biggest thing that I'd like to really stress is they talk a lot about Rapid City and the historic district. And I can remember years ago, and I believe it was a Mrs. Connect that said that Rapid City is fortunate, something to the effect that Rapid City is fortunate to have West Boulevard because it is truly the jewel of Rapid City. And I think if you start putting garbage cans out onto the street and leaving them out onto the street for all day, and then maybe a little bit of the next day and possibly even the next day, you're going to start creating an eyesore and something that isn't very pleasant to, as the gentleman just mentioned, people coming in to look at Rapid City or tourists that are coming. So I'd really hope that it could be something that would be revisited. Also the concern that there's alley houses. What are the people that live in the alley houses supposed to do? The people that are landlocked, and I know safety was a concern, obviously for them. During the winter, especially after this last winter and the snowdrift that we had, I don't believe that we could get ours out. And I understand in talking to gentlemen with the city that they have a special program, backyard pickup. All of a sudden now we're starting to talk about all these additional waivers, if you will, or special considerations. And I think it just boils down to a good common sense management situation. And as all of you are in management, you know that for every problem there's a solution. I think the first thing that we should do is maybe start looking at smaller trucks. Something that could get the bigger trucks, if they're concerned about that, out of the alley. Look at some of the different options. But again, the biggest thing that I want to stress is this is historic Rapid City. A lot of the homeowners that live there try to keep their houses in beautiful condition. Some of them are on, I'm sure, on the historic register. And now we're thinking about putting garbage cans in the front and leaving them. Lastly, talking to a gentleman, he said, I wonder if people will start to build little containers out on West Boulevard to keep their garbage containers in there so they don't have to run them back and forth. They'll be sitting in front of the houses, and then I suppose you'll probably have little sheds up against the houses that are guarding that. And these are the historic houses, as I believe Mrs. Connect said. This is the jewel of Rapid City. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Eric Heikus.
Eric Heikus, 1115 West Boulevard. I'm a landscape architect, and I am licensed to practice in this state. This is the kind of stuff that I do for a living, is visual resource management. My opinion on the waste receptacles in the boulevard is that it's not a good idea. I don't feel that it is a good context for West Boulevard or any other significant arterial or collector in our town. We have a pretty town. West Boulevard, if you want a little history lesson, is part of the City Beautiful movement that Frederick Law Olmsted, one of the oldest landscape architects in the country, prescribed in many communities like ours to have a real sense of place. So by putting these waste receptacles even out for a short period is a bad decision, and it kind of alarmed me to hear the other options that the previous speaker mentioned about building sheds and other things out there to house them or screen them. I think that would actually require a permit to occupy the right-of-way. It's actually your right-of-way out there. Our properties only start on the back of the sidewalk, so you got this great big boulevard, which, as I believe, Jeff, is a park. And you're basically putting these waste receptacles in a beautiful park. So I don't think that's the right message we want to send. That's my opinion, and I'm also representing the West Boulevard Neighborhood Association. I'm one of the officers. There's several other officers here that were elected by that area, and there's not a single one of us of the officers or elected group that supports this either. So I think we're pretty universally opposed to the waste receptacles. That's my official capacity. Oh, and I'm applauding the work that your urban forester is doing in the boulevard, on the other hand. It's really looking good, and just another reason to keep it looking beautiful out there in that boulevard. So special thanks to that group for what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Kroll.
Hi, I'm Sean Kroll, 1305 11th Street, also in the West Boulevard District. I was a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I was also the chair for several years. And a couple of years ago, there was a commissioned survey done of the entire West Boulevard District in its entirety. And most of those houses, very, very many of them, I got the postcard on Saturday, so I didn't have time Monday to count. But I would give it a very solid 50, if not even more, 60% of those houses were never designed to have front access. When you drive up and down any of those streets, it is a terrible burden on a lot of those people to actually make it around from their alley all the way around to the front of the house, whether they have to go up the alleys, across and over. And then if you do go to one side of the alley or the other side of the alley to drop those off, you have the problem of whether or not the people that live at the end of the alleys want everybody's trash at their house on their pickup days. So there's several different things that are involved in this, but one of them is truly just the sheer concept of the way that life was lived back in these neighborhoods. They didn't have front access. So that's one thing. The safety is also another thing. On 11th Street in particular, the nursing school, when it's in session, really is just a one-lane street, and you have to pull off into driveways and other things like that when you meet another car. So unless you take something into account where you were trying to do like what Bill had said earlier about doing one side of the street or one side of the alley, I'd gladly give up my side of the alley, as long as it wasn't too horrible to get it all on one side. But there are other options than having them taken around, and I think it's a tremendous burden to the people in the West Boulevard District, and not just in the West Boulevard District, but also in, I believe it's Ward 1 south of St. Patrick Street and east of 5th. Almost all of those houses on St. Charles, St. Andrew, and everything down on that section do not have any street access as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Now, Pat Roseland.
Thank you, Council, for letting us speak tonight. Pat Roseland, 1318 West Boulevard. I'm president of the West Boulevard Neighborhood Association. When I got my card in the mail Saturday, I thought, I put my cans out in front anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. Then I started getting phone calls. I'm not the only one in the West Boulevard area living there, and so I can't say what works for me doesn't work for everybody else. And I was speaking to one of the guys out in the hallway, and I asked him how many, is this going through the whole citywide or just West Boulevard or what? He says, well, it's going basically West Boulevard, 20% of the population. Well, he picked a loud 20% of the population in West Boulevard. We love where we live. We protect that area tremendously. We're proud of where we're at. And as was said before, garbage cans lining the streets of West Boulevard where most of the people park on the street because they can't park in the alley or they don't have garages. Are they going to, is the city going to require us to have no parking on West Boulevard on Thursdays so the city can pick up trash? I don't think that's realistic. And so I'm coming out against this, and I'm hopefully that maybe this will be nipped in the bud before it starts to bloom, because it's not good for West Boulevard. It's not good for the city of Rapid City because, as I said before, West Boulevard Historic District is a jewel of Rapid City and possibly the jewel of South Dakota, because we just, it's just the best place, I think, to live in Rapid City. And we're all there for a reason because we love Rapid City. And so I just want to come out and say I'm against it. And as I said before, most of the, probably all the officers of the West Boulevard Association are against it. Haven't had time to poll our memberships because we had, what, 2 days? So it's impossible to poll everybody. But the phone calls I've got have all been negative towards this process. So I'm hoping the city council would look at this. I was told by Steve Parley that it was an internal decision, not to change the policy. And it's, I think something like this should go to city council because it affects a lot of people. And I thank you for your listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Could I ask for a point of privilege?
Yes, Councilwoman Darla Drew would like a point of personal privilege. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to ask some questions of Mr. Pauley, but we're going to do that in just a few minutes, okay? I'm just going to make a few quick remarks, and then we're going to figure out how to move forward. Yeah, I found out on Saturday, too. You know, I got calls from people that were complaining about this trash location, you know, to take it out of the alleys and into the streets, and they were quite upset. And I'd never gotten any heads up. I really would have appreciated something like that, and especially since the West Boulevard area is part of my ward, and it is a special area. It's there for education, it's there for preservation. The people that live there have to adhere to very strict guidelines on what they do to their homes. And whether it's windows, doors, siding, fences, whatever it is, they have to take a lot of pride in their homes to live there and to respect the historic value that you have been the ones that have kept it for the rest of us. So thank you for doing that. And I think it's about appearance. So what, every garbage day we're going to say, appearance doesn't matter this day. You know, maybe paint your house lime green if you want to. Appearance just doesn't matter on garbage day. That, we can't have that. We're going to make some kind of an arrangement. I understand that Mr. Pauley is going to talk a little bit, especially about the West Boulevard District and some of the accommodations we'll be able to make. Also, I could not get this on the agenda tonight, folks. So I'm head of the Public Works Department, or no, I'm not, head of the Public Works Committee. Gosh, I don't want to be that. Anyway, head of the Public Works Committee, and I will bring this to the agenda for Tuesday's meeting. It'll be right here on June 11th at 12:30. Whether I'm reelected tomorrow or not, I will still be the chair of that committee. That will give us some time to really brainstorm and talk about some of the ideas and solutions you may have, and further questions for Mr. Dale-Tech or Mr. Pauley. So once again, that's going to be June 11th at 12:30, and I'd love to hear your suggestions or solutions, and I'll be checking my email and my Facebook page. So please go ahead and contact me, because that's the only way I found out about this in the first place, was phone calls to me saying, hey, you know, we've got a big problem here, and because the people on this dais had no forewarning that this was going to happen. And the fact that we're going to help one neighborhood, well, maybe there's other wards that are going to have some problems too. So we better be looking at this as a city. Thank you.
Okay, and as long as we're on this topic, let's call up Steve Paulai, who's the solid waste manager, and get an overview of what's going on and what the plan for the near future is.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, concerned citizens. A month ago, I did address the Public Works Committee, and they did ask about alleys in a direct question. And you know, I'm not originally from here, so I didn't know about the West Boulevard Association. I just looped it all into the Mount Rushmore Road area, that those were areas that we are targeting to bring out of the alleys. So if there was a mix-up on that communication, it was mine, just new to the area. Our plan going forward on this pending reroute is we're going to meet with the West Boulevard Association here in the next week. I also have an invite out to the North Rapid Association, because that area of town is also targeted too. I've spoke with some of their residents as well today. So in the next week, we'll be able to work through whether we stay with the plan or not. You know, that'll come to fruition at these meetings. So I appreciate your concerns and respect them. And once this is all done, it'll be, you know, back to being out of sight, out of mind is what waste and recycling. So,
Thank you. Point of privilege again, Mayor. I just need one question, quick question to him.
Okay.
So my big question is why? Why did this happen? What is this supposed to accomplish for our city?
It's not every alley, but there are quite a few alleys that with the hard winter and all the rain, you know, that's been flooding these people's basements, is also making these alleys very soft. And the street department is having enough to keep up on the streets to try to start repairing alleys. Another issue is we have automated trucks and the arm extends out. Some of these alleys aren't that wide. We've had to replace 9 arms on the trucks, and to rebuild each arm is $4,500. So it was a multiple of issues there. Not every alley, because some of them are paved, but in these targeted areas, if you're going to do a route, you can't pick, you know, okay, this part of the alley's dirt, and then this one's paved, and this dirt. You just sort of got to stay with it. You can't zigzag all the way around on a route. So that was the goal.
So the problems are alleys and truck size? Is that correct? Or?
Well, it's the truck choice. Not really the size of the truck is part of it. You know, with the weight on the soft dirt, but also when you have an automated truck, they're more for out on the streets and not for alley service.
One last question. So why now? I mean, we've
It
had
actually
these
should
trucks
have
for
been
a
done
long
when
time.
2016, when these trucks were purchased, I would say is when this problem should have been addressed. The choice of truck that was purchased should have been addressed. So that's, you know, what we're up against right now. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk more at Public Works.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, one more speaker request, Carissa Lowen.
Hello. I'm sure you've heard from plenty of concerned homeowners. I just wanted to add voice to the concern about the city showing that they're serious about helping people who have water damage to their homes, especially when it has to do either with drainage issues or sewer issues that the city technically is responsible for. And I understand that all of you are not responsible for the fact that this hasn't been updated in decades and that now this problem is laying in your laps, but it's really important that the city shows that they understand the hardship that this places on families. It's a huge hardship. We had to, in my own home in Ward 5, I'm not in the same area where all these sewers are backing up, we had to make adjustments to our driveway just to deal with the fact that the drainage runs down the sidewalk and into our driveway and there's no storm sewers. And that was a hardship that we had to manage financially on our own. I know some other people don't have the means to do that. And if they do, it's going to break them. And if they don't, then there's health issues for their family. And we're damaging homes. That's going to affect our community for the long term. And I don't think that people's financial ability to manage these repairs should be placed, should determine whether they have mold in their homes or not for the long term. Because that's a health issue. So I just wanted to encourage you to really take it seriously. And I know that there's a lack of money, but I think it's a priority for people to live in safe, clean homes that don't have mold in the basements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that takes us through our general public comment. Now on to non-public hearing items, items 2 through 48. We're going to open public comment on items 2 through 38. I have one speaker request for those items. On item 27, Chuck Henry.
That was quick. Item 27 is about purchasing the land for One Heart campus, which I eventually believe is going to be good for the community. So we need to make that purchase and help them out. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll close the public comment period and now go on to consent items 2 through 38. Would the council like to pull any of these items or vote for them all at once? Okay. Motion to approve by Lewis, second by Modrick. All in favor of approval of consent items, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us through consent on to non-consent items, items 39 through 48. We won't need a public comment period. There are no speaker requests. So we'll start with item 39 under ordinances. First, item 39, first reading ordinance 6336, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2019. Motion to approve by Nordstrom, second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval of that item, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40. First reading, ordinance 6331, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for rezoning from general agricultural district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located on Johnson Ranch Road, east of Providers Boulevard. Motion to approve by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that item, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 41, first reading ordinance 6334, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 LLC and BH Capital 6 LLC for a rezoning from light industrial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located east and north of the current terminus of East Philadelphia Street. Motion to approve by Solomon and a second by Modrick. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 42, first reading ordinance 6335, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions, Black Hills Capital 6 LLC for rezoning from general commercial district to mobile home residential district for property generally described as being located east and south of the current terminus of East Philadelphia Street. Motion to approve by Nordstrom, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have one Public Works item. We can go to Public Works Committee Chair Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. Request by KTM Design Solutions on behalf of Yasmin Dream LLC for reimbursement for repayment of 1/2 of construction costs for sanitary sewer improvements for the North Valley Park in the amount of $110,445.05. Recommendation, send to council without recommendation and have the staff identify a potential funding source.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the City Council and received an email that the petitioner and the city staff are still working on this and wanted this continued until the next City Council meeting, if I remember the email correctly. So I'd like to make that motion to continue this item to the next City Council meeting, which would be June 17th.
Okay, we have a second by Steve Laurenti, and we'll go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Joel Landine a question.
I'm sorry, who?
Mr. Landine.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Joel, I know we were told over the course of these weeks that we would receive a memorandum on this, and we've still received nothing. I believe that the client has. Are we going to get brought up to date on this at some point?
The short answer is yes. There's a memo, as Mr. Treelor indicated, there's a memo drafted. Mr. Shaffey and Mr. Treelor met with the mayor on Friday morning. I was not present at that meeting to discuss the memo. I noticed that in his email, he said that there were some issues brought up. The mayor said they did discuss some other items. I reached out to Mr. Treelor today to try to understand what, if any, specific issues he had with the memo, and I did not hear back from him. I wanted to try at least to reach out to him and try to address those if the memo needs to be amended, or at least point out where there's discrepancies before I send it to council. I will probably give him a day or two to do that, and if not, yes, I think the anticipation is prior to the next council meeting, you will have that memo.
It would be very helpful if we had the information prior to getting emails and calls on these matters. Thank you.
And I'll add to Joel Landine's answer on that. The memo was produced and given to Mr. Shaffey and Mr. Treelor, and we had a very informal meeting Friday where we were ready to be flexible and listen to counterpoints on the memo, even make changes to it. So it didn't seem prudent to give that form of the memo to everyone in case something new had been brought to light that would need to change the memo. So the next stop is we'll get Mr. Shaffey and Treelor to look over the memo to specifically cite any inconsistencies or problems with it, and then whichever version then comes from that we'll send to council, along with an update on where we're at in this whole process. So, Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. So I still have a little bit of time. I'd like to recommend perhaps that Public Works Chair has an opportunity to also sit in on these so that she's got some awareness as well, and probably also leadership, just because this one's been sitting out there a while and we need leadership tied to it and information. So we've got some place to go when these calls come in. It would be very helpful, and I think that they do a great job in their role as chair, and they should be involved in this matter. Thank you.
Okay, we're open to that. So do we vote on this? Okay. The motion is to continue to the next city council meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 44, under community development items, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1A through 20B of Block 1 and Lot 1A through 20B of Block 2 of Orchard Meadows, generally described as being located west of Elderberry Boulevard.
Move to approve the stipulations.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with stipulations and a second by Darla Drew. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 45, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lot 19 through 26 and 29 through 37 of Block 2 of Johnson Ranch subdivision, generally described as being located on Johnson Ranch Road, east of Providers Boulevard.
Move to approve with stipulations.
Motion to approve with stipulations and a second by Darla Drew. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 LLC and BH Capital 6 LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Lot 1 of Block 1 and Lot 2 of Block 2 of Shepherd Hills West subdivision, generally described as being located east of the current terminus of East Philadelphia Boulevard.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve with stipulations by Laurenti and a second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alcoholic beverage licenses, item 47, retail on-off malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license renewals, and the police chief indicates no problems with any of these license applications. So 47, will there be a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Modrick, and a second by Scott. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 48, retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license renewals with video lottery. Motion to approve with Scott and a second by Drew. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing items 49 and 50. We'll go right to item 49. Okay, we have a motion to approve item 49, which is the only consent item, by Amanda Scott, and a second is by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval of 49, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Non-consent public hearing items, item 50. Item 50 is Uland. Who knows that word for sure? Oland? Uland Outlot Revised, approval of resolution 2019-031, a request by FMG Engineering for Rapid City Economic Development Foundation to consider an application for a vacation of right-of-way for property generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of East Boulevard and East Main Street. Motion to approve by Scott and a second by Drew. All in favor of that item say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. What?
What?
No, that was just 50.
That was 50.
That was just 50. Okay, we have a mix-up in the agendas. So what is item 50 on your? Hold on. Okay, everything's good. Okay, we have a motion to move into executive session pursuant to personnel issues under South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, subsection 1, and we have a second by Steve Laurenti. All in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session. we have a motion to come out of executive session, please? Who said that? Lewis made the motion and Laurenti seconded. We are all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we're out of executive session. Is there staff direction from executive session?
I authorize the Public Works Director to make offers of employment for the following positions at the following grade and step: Engineering Project Manager, grade NU 23, step 21, $88,530.87, and the Industrial Electronic Tech, grade AF 16, step 15, at $23.95 per hour.
Okay, second by Jason Solomon. Seeing no discussion, all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 51 is the bill list. We'll go to Finance Officer Pauline Sumption.
I believe there was a new bill list attached to correct the community development computer bill list to $8,662.30. The original one said $8,662.50. So that brings the total bill list to $8,370,279.79.
Motion approved by Laurenti and second by Lewis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Scott and a second by everyone else. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.